The leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, says Iran will never bow to the global hegemony's bullying tactics. Ayatollah Khamenei reiterated that he is not opposed to the nuclear talks between Iran and the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany. However, he expressed skepticism about the negotiations and said they will lead nowhere. Ayatollah Khamenei said the U.S. and its allies use the nuclear issue as an excuse. He noted that even if the nuclear issue is resolved, they will invent another pretext. The leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution also ruled out attempts to portray the U.S. government as caring and humanitarian, dismissing any such efforts as futile. Ayatollah Khamenei made those comments in Tehran in an address to a group of people from the northwestern city of Tabriz. The gathering was set up to mark the anniversary of the 1978 uprising of the people of Tabriz against the U.S.-backed Pahlavi rule. To discuss that further, we're now joined by Mr. Hamid Reza Emadi, who is Press TV's newsroom director, and he is joining us live right here in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Mr. Emadi, thanks for joining us. Now, how do you assess the leader's statement?
Well, the leader said it very much clearly that the U.S. and its allies are after regime change in Iran. He says if the nuclear issue is resolved, that means that he believes that it will be resolved probably over the course of the negotiations. If the nuclear issue is resolved, they will invent other excuses, other pretexts. So it is very much clear that the United States is not going to limit its pressure on Iran just to the nuclear issue. And we have seen over the past few weeks the U.S. government officials, John Kerry, the Secretary of State, and others, they have said that, okay, now let's go for the Iran defense capabilities for the country's missile program. And after that, they will definitely go after things like Iran's support for some regional resistance groups, and then the human rights issue. Iran may not be the best or have the best record in terms of human rights, but the United States is not in a position to talk about human rights in Iran because the U.S. is the world's is one of the world's biggest violators of human rights, together with its top allies, Saudi Arabia and Israel. So there is this wall of mistrust between Iran and the U.S. The trust deficit, if you will, between the two countries go back 60 years. When 1953, the U.S. the CIA staged its first ever coup against a sitting government, and that was in Iran against the government of democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. The U.S. toppled a democratically elected government in Iran, and then after that, the U.S. helped Saddam Hussein in its 8-year war against the Iranian people, and it supported Saddam Hussein in any shape and form it could, provide it with political support, with material support. And after that, you see the passenger plane, the Iranian passenger plane, was shot down by the U.S. Navy, and then you see the U.S. Imposing illegal sanctions against the Iranian nation for 3 decades now. So this trust deficit has been created by the United States in the first place, and the Iranians are just responding to it. Iran says, you are after regime change, and that's what you're trying to do in Iran.
So the question, I'm sure, in many people's minds right now is that then why do successive Iranian governments enter into negotiations to begin with?
Well, Iran's just trying to show it's transparent. It's trying to show it is show that a gesture of goodwill by entering the negotiations, telling the world that, okay, we don't trust them, but we are ready to negotiate with them in order to prove to the world that it is not the nuclear issue. The U.S. is after regime change in Iran. Iran is saying it loud and clear that we are being transparent. We are trying to open up all the nuclear installations to the inspections. As we've done that before, we're trying to be more transparent. We're trying to open up all the channels that might create some sort of a greater trust in the country's nuclear program. And Iran says, when we're transparent, when we're doing that, you are not reciprocating. You're just threatening Iran. You're just saying all options are on the table. What does that mean, all options are on the table? So somebody has to ask the U.S. President Barack Obama, what does that mean? Are you threatening Iran with military force? Are you threatening Iran that if anything goes against our wishes, we will attack Iran? I was watching Fox News last night. There was this man who was saying that The nuclear deal was a wrong thing because Iran has access to nuclear enrichment. Iran got what it wanted, and let's attack Iran. Isn't that incitement to violence? Isn't that incitement to genocide? The U.S. and the radical forces within the U.S. administration and within the U.S. Congress in particular, those pro-Israeli lobbies, Bob Menendez and Mark Kirk, they are trying to portray Iran as a threat, while the main threat is the United States, which has used nuclear weapons. The main threat is Israel, which is technically at war with all of its neighbors and has nuclear weapons. Iran does not have nuclear weapons. Iran is not after nuclear weapons, and Iran is trying to be more transparent to show to the whole world that it is not Iran that is a threat. It is the U.S., it is Israel.
Okay, we'll leave it there for now, but of course we do appreciate your insight. That was Mr. Hamid Reza Ahmadi speaking to us live from right here in Tehran.